Hi guys, this is Miss Dixon, and today is Tuesday, and we are going to jump into our Slate Math packet. So, for Tuesday, you need to have out your Slate Math packet. It should say Tuesday, March 24th on it, and you should have a pencil. Okay, let's get started. This very first problem says, Joelle and Amber have different amounts of cookies. Joelle has half of 54 cookies and Amber has half of 48 cookies. Who has more? Prove it. Make sure you're thinking about what does half mean. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to solve this problem. Try your best using a strategy to figure out who has more cookies, Joelle or Amber. Take about another 15 seconds. Okay, let's pause there. So, I already have my board set up. In order for us to figure out who has more, Joelle or Amber, we need to figure out what half of these numbers are. Now, when you take a look at these numbers, I always say to my class that the easiest way to figure out a half of a number is by choosing the number that has an even digit in the tens place and an even digit in the ones place. So we're going to start with Amber. Let's think, what is half of 4? Hopefully you wrote down 2. And what's half of 8? Hopefully you wrote down 4. So Amber has a total of 24 cookies. Now we're going to go back to Joelle. Joelle has 54. That means he has 50 and 4. So what is half of 50? 25. 2 quarters, 25 and 25 make 50. And then half of 4 is 2. So when you add 25 and 2 together, you get 27. So that means that Joelle has 27 cookies. So who has more? Joelle has 27, Amber has 24. Hopefully in your own work you figured out that Joelle, you can write this in a sentence, has more cookies. If this problem was challenging for you, because half problems can be challenging, definitely circle it. This is something you should go over in your conference or check-in that you have this week with your teacher. Let's go on to number 2. Number 2 is asking us, let me just erase my board here. Number 2 is asking us, circle the point on the number line below that best represents 18,900. Awesome, so hopefully we're all there. So the important thing here is when you're trying to figure out the point that best represents a number, you need to first label the entire number line. So let me grab my pen. And we need to make sure that we label the number line. So the first thing you need to figure out is, how is this number line counting? So if I go from 15,000 to 16,000, what am I adding? Hopefully you said plus 1,000, because the thousands digit is what is changing. So if this line is 15,000 and this line is 16,000, the next line would be 17,000. We can label these together. And then 18,000, kind of writing really small. I don't even know if you can see it. It's really, really small so that I can fit all of these. Your other option is to go up and above and below every line as you label, if that's easier for you. So the next line would be 19,000 and then 20,000. The next line is labeled for us, and it's a great way to check our work. If I was at 20,000, one more group of 1,000 would be 21,000, so that makes sense. Now I'm going to finish it off. Even though there's no points over here, it's always good to finish it off. So 22,000, 23,000, 24,000, and 25,000. So now that we have successfully labeled our number line, we're going to be able to figure out what point best represents 18,900. Now you'll notice in the question that that word best is in bold print and darker print, and that's because this space between one line and the other is worth 1,000. That's the total distance. So it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be the guess that makes the most sense. Right now, I want you to take a look at these points, and I want you to tell me one, or think about one that makes no sense at all, that could not possibly be 18,900, and cross it off. Now, one of the reasons why I'm having you do this, just like in reading when you're answering multiple choice questions, some of the possible answers that we're going to give you just make no sense at all. And so it's always good to eliminate the wrong answers first. So hopefully some of you crossed off A. Point A wouldn't make sense because it's between 17,000 and 18,000. It's not even in the 18,000s yet. It's between 17 and 18, so it's way too small. Taking a look here, I think there's another one that you could cross off as well. Which one could that be? Hopefully some of you crossed off D. D wouldn't make sense because it's exactly on the line that's 20,000. And that wouldn't make sense because I'm looking for the number that the dot that best represents 18,900. So I've eliminated two choices and I'm left with B and C. So take a second and look at those dots. Think about what numbers they're closest to and circle the one that you actually think best represents 18,900. Hopefully you circled C. The reason why C best represents 18,900 is because I know 18,900 is only 100 away from 19,000, and point C is really close to 19,000. If you look at point B, that's really close to 18,000. So point B would represent a number like 18,100 or maybe even 18,200 because that's really close to 18,000. But our number, 18,900, that needs to be closer to 19,000. Awesome. Take about 30 seconds to count back by 3 from each of the numbers here. Okay, so 3 less than 18 is 15. 3 less than 30, that's kind of tricky because it has a 0 there, but that's 27. 3 less than 24, 21. And 3 less than 12, 9. Awesome. If number 2 or number 3 were tricky for you, make sure you circle them so you can go over them with your teacher. And the last problem on this page is asking you to figure out the time. Now, it's kind of hard because my hour hand and my minute hand look kind of similar in length, but my hour hand is not going to touch any one of the numbers. So make sure when you're figuring out the time for these 3 clocks, you're looking for your hour hand first, and that's the number, that's the hand that is not touching any of the numbers. So go ahead, take about 30 seconds to a minute to figure out the time for these 3 clocks. Okay, so for this first clock, right here, I wish I had a highlighter and I don't right now, but this is my hour hand, this one right here. I can see that it's between the 12 and the 1, and it's a little bit past the 12. So because it hasn't gotten to 1 o'clock yet, my hour is 12, and my minute hand is 5, 10, 15. So the time here is 12:15. Now my next one, my hour hand is right here. You can see if I draw these little dotted lines, it's between 11 and 12, which means it's getting closer to 12 o'clock, but it's not 12 o'clock yet, it's still 11. And my time is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So in 10 minutes, it's going to be 12, but this clock is showing 11:50. Next one over here, here's my hour hand. You can see it's between 9 and 10. So that means it hasn't gotten to 10 o'clock yet. It's on its way there. So it's still 9 o'clock for my hour. And I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 minutes. Awesome. Hopefully you got these 3 right. If you have any questions at all, make sure you circle it. Let's turn to the back of this page. The back of this page has a quick counting question that's asking you to count by 5s. We can do this together. Ready? 75 plus 5 is 80. Plus 5, 85. Plus 5, 90. Plus 5, 95. Plus 5, 100. Plus 5, 105. Plus 5, 110. That's the last number you should have written. Oh, you can't really see it. My fault. Awesome. This next question, I'm going to give you some time to answer it, and I wrote it down on the board here. It says, there are 42 carrots. If each bunny can get 7 carrots, how many bunnies can get carrots? For this problem, I want to see 3 things. I want to see you create a key where you tell me what these numbers represent and what you're solving for. If this step is tricky for you and you're not sure what I mean, skip it, that's okay. I would like to see a number sentence, and I would also like to see a strategy. And this strategy can be a strategy of your choice. Please circle the answer when you're done. It's always a good habit to keep doing. Take about 3 minutes to figure this out. Definitely reread this problem if you're not sure. Take about another minute or so to figure it out. If you've already solved it, solve it with a different strategy. Okay, I'm gonna pause right here. Let's start first with this key. Now I know some of you, I know if you're in my class, you're definitely familiar with this. If you're not in my class, this might, you probably have done this with your teachers a couple of times, but let's just go over what this key is. So, hopefully you realized when you read this problem that this is not just an addition or subtraction problem. I'm not just taking 42 and adding 7 or taking 42 and subtracting 7, but instead what I'm doing here is it's an equal group problem. So that means I'm going to have my groups, I'm going to have my number in each group, and I'm going to have a total. So we have two numbers in this problem, number 42, number 7, and a question mark. When you read this problem, hopefully you figured out that 42 is representing my total number of carrots. So that's my total. And then the number 7 represents the number each bunny gets. So that means I have to figure out my number of bunnies. So this means I am trying to figure out my groups. I do not know how many groups I have. I do know the number in each, but I don't know my number of groups. So one strategy you can do for this, because as we know, since we know our total, this is a division problem, which means I'm taking a total and I'm dividing it into groups to figure out how many are in each group, or in our case, we have a total and we know how many are in each group, but we don't know our groups. So what I'm gonna do, and this is a strategy we've practiced, I'm gonna draw out 42 circles. I'm gonna draw my circles in groups of 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just so I don't get confused, and it keeps it nice and organized. So here's 20, 30, 42. Awesome. This is going to be a little bit harder. I'm going to hold the board up, like angle it like this so you can see it. So now, because I wrote out my total, I know my total, I have 42 carrots. I know the number in each, a number that each bunny gets, the number in each group. So I'm going to circle 7 because that represents the number that each bunny can get. My total number of bigger circles represents my number of bunnies or my groups. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to draw a circle around my 7. So that's 1 bunny. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 2 bunnies. So far I have 2. And I have to go all the way to the end until I have none left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 bunnies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4 bunnies. I'm going to write that right there. Kind of small. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 5 bunnies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you've done this right, you're going to have used all of your carrots and have none left over. So we just made 6 circles with 7 in each. So that means that we have 6 bunnies. So if I wrote a number sentence to match this problem, it would be my total 42 divided by 7 equals 6. Hopefully you got this answer. This is just one strategy that I like to use when I don't know my number of groups. I like to draw out my total and circle the number in each as a great strategy to use. Some of you might have drawn 7 boxes. That's okay. It doesn't exactly match the problem, but it's still a division strategy that you could use to figure out the answer. Division is tricky. It can be really, really challenging. Something I find really helpful is this key. This key is telling you what these numbers represent and help you figure out the best strategy to solve. If any part of this problem was confusing, if you want to find out more about keys, or if you want extra division practice from your teacher, please, please, please talk about it with your teacher when you guys connect later this week. Awesome. We're going to turn the board back. Over here, we have just this last problem. We have a couple parts to it, so we're going to do our best job answering it. I want to make sure you can see it. Awesome. So answer the questions below and we have a number bank to use. So you can see that we have 7, 24, 60, 365, 30, and 12. So using this number bank, I want you to answer these questions over here on the left-hand side. Don't answer these yet, we'll do that together, but answer these questions. Take a minute, go ahead. Take another 10 seconds. Okay, let's stop here. All right, so there are blank days in a week, 7. Crossing that off in my number bank, always a good habit to do. Blank hours in a day, well, 24. Blank seconds in a minute, 60. Blank days in June, oh, this one's a good one. My team and I always sing that little poem or that little song. 30 days have September, April, June, and November. So that means there are 30 days in June. If you don't know that song or that poem, definitely ask your teachers about it. Your parents probably know it too, so you could always ask them as well. Blank days in 2015. So that's days in an entire year. So that would represent 365. Awesome. Hopefully you got all those right. If you didn't, circle the ones that you need some more help with or more practice with. Now let's go over here to these problems. The first one said, if I went running for 2 hours, how many minutes did I run for? So if I went running for 2 hours, how many minutes did I run for? So in order to figure this out, you really have to be thinking about how many minutes are in one hour. Once you know that, you'll be able to figure out how many minutes this person ran for if they ran for 2 hours. Go ahead and take about 30 seconds to a minute to answer that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here for us. Okay. So if I was answering this question, the number sentence that I would use to answer would be 60 plus 60. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour, so I'm going to add 60 and 60 to figure out 2 hours. 0 plus 0 is 0, 6 plus 6 is 12. That means I have 2 tens in my tens place. I regroup my 10 tens into the hundreds place. 1 plus 0 is 1. 120 is my answer, 120 minutes. Now this next one says, Arnaldo practiced math facts for 3 minutes. How many seconds did she practice for? So now we have to figure out how many seconds are in a minute. You could even use this chart to help you. And then you need to figure out how many minutes Arnaldo practiced for. So go ahead and take about 30 seconds for this one. Okay, we're going to stop here. Hopefully you realized your number sentence you needed to solve was 60 plus 60 plus 60 equals something, because there are 60 seconds in 1 minute and they practiced for 3 minutes. Now you can use the fact that you learned up here in this question, the answer that you got in this problem, because we added 60 plus 60. So we already know that that equals 120. So now we just have to add 60 to that. So that means 6 more groups of 10. So 120 plus 60 would equal 180. So there are 180 seconds. The Arnaldo practiced for 180 total seconds. If any of this question here, I'll zoom out. If any of this question here was confusing for you, please circle the parts that were confusing, and you can definitely go over that with your teacher. So that's all that we have for our math lesson today. If you have any questions at all, definitely make sure you talk about it with your teacher this week when you connect. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow.